So, a bit of background before I get into this mess. My name's Jake, I'm 26, and I guess you could say I've always been the odd one out in my family. Not for any dramatic reason, I'm just different. My siblings, Amanda, 28, and Ryan, 30, followed the perfect path my parents always wanted. College, marriage, steady jobs, and the white picket fence dream. Meanwhile, I took a different route. I didn't go straight to college. I worked random jobs, traveled a bit, and finally found my footing in freelance graphic design. I make decent money, live comfortably, and honestly, I'm happy. But to my parents, that's not enough. They don't outright say it, but it's clear in the way they treat me. I'm the immature one, the one who hasn't figured things out yet. And the worst part? They don't even try to hide it. Every family gathering, every holiday, there's always some comment about how I should start thinking about my future or find a real job like Ryan. As if I'm some lost teenager instead of a full-grown adult. So when my parents invited me to a big family dinner, I knew what to expect. These things were never casual affairs. My mom loved hosting these over-the-top, fancy dinners where everyone dressed up like we were meeting the president. And, of course, they always centered around Ryan and Amanda's amazing accomplishments. Still, I decided to go. Because despite everything, they're my family. I keep giving them chances, hoping maybe this time will be different. Spoiler alert, it wasn't. I showed up right on time, dressed nicely, because God forbid I give them another reason to criticize me, and immediately felt out of place. The house was buzzing with conversation, relatives catching up, glasses clinking, the smell of expensive food wafting from the dining room. I spotted Ryan and Amanda near my parents, talking to some of our aunts and uncles. As soon as I walked in, my mom's eyes landed on me, scanning me up and down like she was checking for imperfections. "Jake," she said, plastering on a smile. "So glad you could make it." "Yeah, wouldn't miss it," I said, forcing a polite grin. Dad clapped me on the back. "Hope you're hungry." We went all out this time. I nodded, making small talk with a few relatives, but something felt off. There was an energy in the room, something I couldn't quite put my finger on. And then, as we all started heading to the dining room, I found out why. The dining table was long, elegantly set with expensive plates and silverware. The main table had about 10 seats, all taken by my parents, Ryan, Amanda, their spouses, and a few other relatives. Then, off to the side, in a completely separate area, was a smaller table. A literal kid's table. I blinked, half expecting this to be some weird joke. But no. The small table was set up with mismatched chairs, slightly lower than the main one. And at that table? My younger cousins. I looked back at my mom, confused. "Where am I sitting?" I asked, already knowing the answer but hoping, praying, I was wrong. She gave me that same forced smile. "Oh, you'll be over there with the kids." I laughed, waiting for her to say she was joking. She didn't. "You're serious?" I said. Mom's smile barely wavered. "Jake, don't make this a thing. It's just easier this way." I glanced around, waiting for someone, anyone, to step in and say something. But no one did. Ryan and Amanda avoided my gaze, pretending to be too wrapped up in their conversations. My dad was already pouring himself a drink like nothing was wrong. "Easier how?" I asked, keeping my voice calm but firm. Mom sighed, like she was the victim here. "Jake, it's just that the main table is for the adults. You know, married couples, people with responsibilities." "Right," I said slowly, feeling my jaw tighten. "And I don't count as an adult because—" "Sweetheart, don't be difficult," she said, dropping her voice like I was embarrassing her. "Ryan and Amanda have spouses, careers, homes. They're at a different stage in life. And I'm, what? Some teenager who doesn't belong?" "Of course not," she said, but the way she avoided my eyes told me everything. "It's just more fitting this way." I felt my stomach twist. This wasn't just about seating arrangements. This was them putting me in my place. Telling me, without saying it outright, that I wasn't their equal. That I wasn't worthy of sitting with the real adults. And that's when I realized something. They didn't see me as part of their world. No matter what I did, no matter how successful I became on my own terms, I'd always be the kid who hadn't figured it out yet in their eyes. I could have made 6 figures, bought a house, gotten married, none of it would matter. Because in their minds, I wasn't good enough. I could feel my face heating up, but I wasn't going to let them see me get angry. I wasn't going to argue, wasn't going to give them the satisfaction of making me look childish. So I did the only thing I could think of. I smiled. A small, polite smile. The kind you give when you're done. "You know what?" I said, my voice light and even. I think I'm gonna head out. Mom blinked. Jake, don't be ridiculous. Sit down. I shook my head, already backing away. No, it's fine. You guys enjoy your dinner. Jake, Dad said, finally looking up. Stop being dramatic. Dramatic? I let out a short laugh. I'm just following the seating chart. Guess I'll go sit somewhere else. And with that, I turned around and walked out. I didn't slam the door. I didn't yell. I just left. At first, I thought they'd just let me go, that they'd shake their heads and call me immature behind my back. But as I got into my car, my phone started buzzing, then buzzing again and again. I glanced down at the screen. Calls, texts, my mom, my dad, even Ryan and Amanda. I didn't answer. Not yet. Because whatever they had to say, I knew one thing for sure. They didn't expect me to actually leave. And judging by how desperately they were calling me, they realized they'd made a mistake. But it was too late, and I had a feeling this was only the beginning. I sat in my car for a moment, just watching my phone light up with call after call. My mom, my dad, even Amanda, who usually stayed out of things, were all suddenly desperate to talk to me. I wasn't going to answer. Not yet. Instead, I took a deep breath, put my phone on silent, and drove off. I didn't even know where I was going. I just needed to get away to clear my head. As I pulled onto the highway, my mind kept replaying the scene at the dinner table. The way my mom had smiled like she was doing me a favor. The way Ryan and Amanda had kept their mouths shut. The way my dad had dismissed me as dramatic, like I was some moody teenager instead of a grown man. The worst part? None of them thought they were wrong. They weren't panicking because they felt bad. They were panicking because I had actually left. Because I hadn't played along this time. I kept driving until I found a quiet diner on the edge of town. One of those old-school places with neon lights and sticky booths. I parked, went inside, and ordered a coffee just to have something to do with my hands. I needed to think. I wasn't just angry. I was tired. Tired of always being the one expected to tolerate things. Tired of being the only one who had to be the bigger person. Tired of playing along with a family that only saw me as a lesser version of my siblings. But what was I supposed to do now? A notification popped up on my phone. Another message. This one from Ryan. Ryan texted, "Dude, just come back. It's not that serious." Not that serious? I scoffed, shaking my head. This wasn't about a seat at a table. It was about the fact that they saw me as less, and the fact that they expected me to just accept it. I was about to turn my phone off completely when another message popped up. Mom texted, "Jake, answer your phone. We need to talk." Then another. Mom texted, "Come back now. You're embarrassing us." There it was. The real issue. It wasn't about me. It was about how it looked to everyone else. I took a sip of my coffee, considering my options. I could ignore them. I could go back and pretend nothing happened. Or I could do something they wouldn't expect. I had a feeling this wasn't over. And if they thought I was just going to roll over and let this go, they were in for a surprise. I sat there for a while, stirring my coffee, watching the steam rise as I thought through my next move. I could practically hear my mom's voice in my head, that sharp, exasperated tone she used when she thought I was being difficult. "Jake, stop overreacting. Just come back and stop making a scene." I used to fall for that. I used to think maybe I was the problem, that I was being dramatic. But this time? No. I wasn't going to let them guilt trip me into backing down. I took a deep breath and finally unlocked my phone. There were even more messages now. Mom texted, "We're all waiting for you to come back. It's time to be an adult and stop sulking." Dad texted, "Enough of this nonsense. You're ruining the evening." Amanda texted, "Jake, please just come back. This is getting awkward." And then, the one that made me angry, Mom texted, "We saved you some food, but if you take much longer, we'll have to throw it out." That was it? That was the best they could do? They weren't sorry. They weren't even pretending to be. They just wanted me to stop embarrassing them. I clenched my jaw, my fingers tightening around my phone. If they thought I was overreacting, maybe it was time to show them what actual consequences looked like. So I made a decision. I paid for my coffee, got back in my car, and drove home. Not to their house. To mine. I wasn't going back to that dinner. I wasn't going to let them sweep this under the rug. And I definitely wasn't going to let them treat me like an afterthought ever again. When I got home, I put my phone on Do Not Disturb and turned it face down on the table. Then, I grabbed a drink from the fridge, sat down on my couch, and turned on the game. As the night dragged on, I kept thinking about the dinner. My mom's face when she told me I wasn't mature enough to sit with the adults. The way my dad had rolled his eyes, dismissing my feelings like they were an inconvenience. And Ryan and Amanda? They just sat there, silent, as if it was normal to treat me like that. I wondered how much longer they'd keep up the act. How much longer they'd pretend that everything was fine, that I was the one causing the problem. But the more I thought about it, the clearer it became. I wasn't the one causing problems. I was the one standing up to the problem. The phone buzzed again, this time from Amanda. I could almost hear her voice in my head as I unlocked it. Amanda texted, "Jake, seriously, I get that you're mad, but you're blowing this out of proportion. Just come back, we'll talk about it." I laughed bitterly. Blowing it out of proportion? I had spent my entire life letting things slide, biting my tongue while my family made me feel small. And now that I'd finally stood up for myself, they wanted me to just sweep it under the rug like always? No. I left her message on read. I didn't want to be the angry, dramatic one anymore. I didn't want to be the problem just because I wasn't okay with being treated like a child. But I was angry, and I wasn't going to apologize for it. The night stretched on, and the phone kept buzzing. Calls, texts, all of it. I ignored them all. At some point, my phone started to feel like an anchor, pulling me back into their drama, into their expectations. But I had made my choice. I wasn't going to go back. I wasn't going to apologize. And I sure wasn't going to let them pretend like I hadn't been treated like garbage. Then, just as I was about to start watching a movie to distract myself, I got a message from my dad. Dad texted, "You've gone too far this time. You've made a scene and embarrassed everyone. Come back and apologize, or this will get worse." I could feel my heart rate pick up. Get worse. Was he threatening me? Was I supposed to just bow down and grovel? The thought of going back and begging for their forgiveness made my stomach churn. It was as if they thought they had the power to control me, like I was just some kid who'd forgotten his place. I stared at the screen, my fingers hovering over the reply button. I wanted to fire back, tell him what I really thought about the way he treated me, but I knew that wasn't going to do anything. All it would get me was more guilt and more manipulation. Instead, I just turned my phone off. For the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe. The weight of their expectations, the constant pressure to be someone I wasn't, had been suffocating. But now, it was like a burden had been lifted. Maybe they didn't understand what was happening, but I did. I didn't need their validation. I didn't need their approval. I was finally doing something for me. Still, I knew they weren't going to let this go. I wasn't naive enough to think they'd just forget about it. They were going to come after me, each one in their own way. Maybe they'd guilt-trip me, or try to manipulate me with promises of family unity. Maybe they'd even pretend like nothing happened and act like I was the one who'd overreacted. But none of that mattered now. I was done letting them make me feel like I wasn't enough. The next morning, I woke up to more messages. I'd left my phone off for the entire night, but I knew exactly what they'd say. Mom texted, "I can't believe you'd act like this. After everything we've done for you, you leave us like this?" Ryan texted, "Jake, stop being stubborn. Just come back and let's pretend this didn't happen." Dad texted, "I'm disappointed. You're acting like a child." The messages were predictable, and part of me was almost relieved to see they hadn't changed. I wasn't sure what I expected, but it definitely wasn't an apology or any sign that they might recognize how wrong they were. I thought about responding. I thought about telling them that I wasn't going to keep playing their games. I thought about calling them out, pointing out how they'd never really seen me as an adult, how they always treated me like the youngest, even though I was in my 20s. But then I remembered what I had promised myself last night. I wasn't going to engage. So, I didn't respond. Instead, I spent the day doing things for myself. I went to the gym, grabbed lunch at a place I'd always wanted to try, and spent the evening reading. It was peaceful. I had a quiet sense of satisfaction, knowing I had taken control of my own life for the first time in a long while. But I wasn't naive enough to think this would be over. The phone calls started up again the next day. My mom mostly. "Mom, I can't believe you do this to your family. After everything we've done for you, you owe us an explanation. Amanda, can we talk? I know you're upset, but this isn't the way to handle it." I was done listening to them. I wasn't going to beg them to understand. I wasn't going to try and make them see my side. They had already made up their minds. It was time for a new plan. This wasn't just about a kid's table anymore. It was about how they had treated me my entire life. It was about the constant expectation that I would just accept being less than. I knew what I needed to do, and I was going to make sure they never treated me like that again. Days passed, and the messages and calls slowed down. It seemed like my family thought I'd just give in eventually, that I'd cave under the pressure of guilt. But each time I saw their names flash on my screen, I just let the phone ring or ignored the texts. I had made my choice, and there was no turning back. I wasn't going to just fade away, though. I wasn't going to disappear into silence. I'd thought long and hard about this, and when I decided to take control, I knew what I had to do. I'd been avoiding them for a few days, but it was time to stop hiding. I needed to confront them once and for all. So, I took a deep breath, grabbed my keys, and drove over to my parents' house. When I pulled up, I saw my mom standing at the door, her arms crossed, looking like she was waiting for me. I could tell she expected me to apologize, to waltz in and beg for forgiveness. She probably thought that once I showed up, everything would be fine again. But I wasn't going to play that game anymore. I parked my car, walked up to the door, and knocked. My mom opened it, her expression tight, but there was a flicker of hope in her eyes when she saw me standing there. "Jake, I'm glad you finally came. I didn't waste any time. I'm not here to apologize," I said flatly. Her expression faltered, just for a moment. She recovered quickly, though. "What do you mean? You've been acting like a child, and we're all waiting for you to come back and make things right. This is getting ridiculous." I took a deep breath. This was it. I had been stewing in my frustration for years, letting it fester. Now, I wasn't going to hold back. "I'm not the one acting childish here, Mom. You and Dad have treated me like a second-class citizen for as long as I can remember. You've always brushed me aside like my thoughts and feelings don't matter." She blinked, taken aback. "Jake, that's not true. We love you. We've always loved you. We've given you everything we could." I shook my head. "Love? If you loved me, you wouldn't treat me like I'm not worthy of sitting at the table with you, like I'm still some kid who doesn't know what's going on. You tell me I'm not mature enough to sit with the adults, but you never let me be an adult. You keep me at arm's length, as if I'm not allowed to have a voice." Her face flushed, and I could see her struggle to maintain control. "You're overreacting. You need to calm down and understand that it's just how things are, tradition, and you're being difficult." "No, you need to understand something," I retorted. "I'm done being quiet about this. I'm done pretending like it's okay. For years, you've treated me like I'm less than. You've always given my siblings the benefit of the doubt while making me feel like I had to prove myself. And I've had enough of it." I could hear my heart beating louder, but I didn't let myself flinch. This was the moment. I'm not a kid anymore, and I'm not going to sit at the kids' table just because it's easier for you. I'm an adult, and the way you've treated me, the way you continue to treat me, is wrong." My mom was quiet for a moment, and I could see the realization settling in her eyes. I wasn't going to back down this time. I wasn't going to apologize for standing up for myself. Finally, she spoke, her voice low. "I don't know where all of this is coming from, Jake. We've done everything we could to raise you right. Why can't you just appreciate it?" "I do appreciate the good things, Mom. But what I don't appreciate is being dismissed over and over again. I don't appreciate being made to feel like I'm less than everyone else in this family. And I'm done. I'm done playing along with this charade." I took a step back, but I wasn't finished. I couldn't walk away without saying everything that had been festering inside me for so long. "You've made me feel invisible for years. You've made me feel like nothing I did was ever good enough. I've been ignored and undermined. And all for what? So you can keep up your perfect little family image while I'm stuck in the background." There was no going back now. I had laid it all out there. I turned and started walking toward the driveway, not looking back. But my mom's voice stopped me. "Jake, don't just walk away from this. Don't make this worse." I stopped my back to her. "You've made it worse, Mom. I'm done with the guilt trips, the manipulation. This isn't about a dinner or a seat at a table. It's about the way you've made me feel every day of my life." I took a few more steps, the weight of her words trailing behind me. I was leaving, but I was also standing my ground. I wasn't going to be their punching bag anymore. As I opened the car door, I heard my dad's voice from the house. "Jake, if you walk out that door, don't come back. Don't ever come back." I didn't hesitate. I slammed the door, cranked the engine, and drove away. I didn't hesitate. I slammed the door, cranked the engine, and drove away. The roar of the engine felt almost like an exhale I had been holding for years, and with each passing mile, it felt like I was shedding more of the weight I had carried all my life. But the thing was, it wasn't over. I knew it wasn't over. The family hadn't just let me go quietly, like I thought they might. They were angry, and I was expecting that. But what came next wasn't just anger, it was something colder, something deeper. It had been a few days since that confrontation, and as expected, my phone had been blowing up nonstop. At first, I ignored every call, every text. I didn't want to fall back into that trap. But then, when I got a voicemail from my dad, a voicemail where he was practically begging me to come home and talk things through, I couldn't help but listen. "Jake, this is your father. Look, I know things got heated, but you're not thinking clearly. You need to come back, sit down with your mother and I. This isn't how families work. Don't let this drive a wedge between us. I know you're angry, but don't make things worse." It was the same old line, "Don't make things worse." The problem was they had already made it worse. Every time they pushed me aside, every time they treated me like an afterthought, every time they minimized my feelings, they made it worse. And yet, here they were, acting like I was the one who was unreasonable. I deleted the voicemail and blocked their numbers. It felt like I was cutting the last thread that had tied me to that toxic relationship. But the next day, my sister Rachel called. She was more level-headed, and I knew she was calling because she wanted to smooth things over. She didn't want to see the family torn apart. "Jake, please, just talk to Mom and Dad. They're devastated. They don't know what went wrong," Rachel pleaded. "Devastated?" I scoffed. "I'm the one who's been devastated for years. Have you ever listened to me, Rachel? Have you ever wondered why I'm the one who's always left out, always treated like I don't matter?" There was a pause on the other end of the line. "I know you feel that way, but it's not true. They love you. They just don't know how to express it. I don't need their love if it's conditional," I snapped. "If they really loved me, they would have respected me a long time ago. I'm done being the punching bag. I'm done." Rachel was quiet for a long time, and I could tell she was trying to process everything. "Jake, this isn't about the dinner or the seat at the table. This is about something deeper, something you need to work through with them. Don't let this destroy us, please." I sighed, rubbing my temples. "It's not just about the dinner. It's everything. It's the years of being treated like I'm invisible. I can't keep pretending everything's fine just to keep the peace. Just think about it, okay?" she said before hanging up. And just like that, the calls kept coming. My mom, my dad, my siblings, everyone trying to convince me to come back, to talk, to make it right. But as the days passed, I realized something. I didn't need their approval. I didn't need their validation anymore. It wasn't just about standing up to them. It was about finally giving myself permission to live the life I wanted, without constantly trying to meet their impossible standards. And that's when it hit me. Maybe it wasn't just them who needed to change. Maybe it was me who needed to change. I didn't need to be the person they wanted me to be. I didn't need to sit at their table under their rules, their expectations. I could build my own table with people who understood me, who respected me for who I was, not who they wanted me to be. I was done with their manipulation. I was done with being the family's afterthought. So now I'm left with a choice. Do I continue down this path of self-respect and independence, even if it means severing ties with my family for good? Or do I go back, try to mend things, and keep pretending like nothing ever happened? I'm at a crossroads. So, Reddit, I'm asking for your thoughts. Am I in the wrong here? Should I try to repair my relationship with my parents? Or is it time to fully cut ties and live my own life, away from all the toxicity? Would love to hear your opinions.